in the end of Pashas Vayechi, which we learned today, there is a passage which we are going to study, and that passage will explain why Yosef HaTzadik is called Sitnoi Shel Esav. We know that when Yaakov Avinu was by Lavan, he could not go back to Eretz Canaan until after Yosef was born. Rashi brings from Chazal, because in order to confront Esav, he had to have Yosef with him. Because Yosef is called Sitnoi Shel Esav. Sitnoi is the Satan. The Satan is the accusator, the enemy, the one who is going to vanquish, to conquer Esav. And Chazal say, Ein Esav noifel elo biyad boneyo shel Rochel. And who is that? That is Yosef. And again we have read in the Haftorah of Avadio, Voyo bes Yankov Eish, ubes Yosef lehovo, ubes Esav kash, uvoaru vom, vohoyu kelohoyu. The house of Yaakov is compared to fire, and the house of Yosef is compared to flame, and the house of Esav is compared to straw. And the fire is going to consume the straw. Now, who is the fire? Who is the flame? That is Yosef. So all these psukim converge to one point, that Yosef is the one who is going to bring down the Esav, to bring the downfall of Esav. Now, how does it happen? What has Yosef got more than all the other Shvatim in order that he should bring the downfall of Esav? What is Esav? The midah of Esav is Ve'evrosoi shemuro netzach. Ve'evrosoi means his anger against Yaakov is kept forever. Esav is the one who is representing what is the behavior of a person who lets himself be led by his anger and by his grudge. Yosef, on the other side, is just the opposite. And that is the passage we are going to study to show how Yosef is the opposite of the behavior of Esav. It happens already at the time, as soon as Yosef reveals himself to his brothers. And he tells them, Ani Yosef achichem, I am Yosef your brother, asher mechartem oisi heino, whom you have sold here in Egypt. And later on he tells them, when he sees that they are so shocked and so upset and are so ashamed of him, he consoles them and he tells them, Ve'ato lo atem shelachtem oisiheino ki Elokim. And now do not be so ashamed of yourself, do not be upset of what you have done to me, because it is not you who has sent me here. Ki lemichyo only Hashem yisborach, ki lemichyo shelochani Elokim lifnechem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has sent me here in Egypt in order to make you survive in the time of famine. In other words, it all turned for the good, for the best. So in one hand, it tells them a rebuke. Chazal says it's a rebuke, it's a tochocho. Ani Yosef achichem asher mechartem oisi heino. I am Yosef, your brother, whom you have sold. So you have done a big avere. You have done a tremendous, terrible thing. You have sold me as a slave. And Take, the brothers could not stand the tochacha. Chazal say, they fainted, more than fainted. Their souls left them, and they had to have Tchiyas HaMesim, Midrash. And to console them, he tells them, Loi atem shlachtem hoisi heino. It's not you who has sent me here. Ki Elokim, only HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it's a contradiction. First he rebukes them and he tells them, you have done a terrible thing to have sold me as a slave. It is a tochacha, it's a rebuke, and they cannot stand it. And straight afterwards, he consoles them and he tells them, no, it's not you. You have done nothing. Loi atem shlachtem hoisi heino. It's not you who have sent me here. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So is it they or is it HaKadosh Baruch Hu? One has to choose. For example, when I keep a grudge, someone has done me a wrong, has stolen me money, has offended me, insulted me. So is it that person? We know that person is Baal Bechira, that person has got free choice, and that person has done me an avle. No one can deny that. That person is a person who has got reason. He's not a shoite, he's not a shiker, he is not drunk. He's a person in all his reason, and he does an avle to me. So what am I to think about that person? Is that person who has done the avle, or is it HaKadosh Baruch Hu who has sent that person to do me an avle? We know already the story of David HaMelech with Shimi ben Geiro. It's again in the Haftorah of Vayechi. It pops up again. David, when Yoav, his general, tells him, when Shimi ben Geiro has insulted him and thrown him stones and pieces of earth and called him all the names, all bad names to David HaMelech, when he was running away from Avshalom, his son, then Yoav says, is chayiv misa, is guilty of death. Let me cut his head, chop his head off with my sword. And David says, why do you want, don't touch him. It's not him. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu who has sent me to me. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, go and curse David. Go and insult David. So that he should have a kapore. So that he should have a humiliation in order to be forgiven for his sin, which he has done with Bathsheba. That is the words of David HaMelech. And in the Haftorah of this week in Vayechi, he tells his son Shlomo before dying, he tells him, do not forget to punish Shimi ben Geiro. I swore to him that I would not touch him, but you know what he deserves. He deserves to be killed. In the Haftorah of this week. Again, it looks like a contradiction. Once he says it's not him, it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu, do not touch him. And then before his death, he says, do not forget to punish him. Find a way how to kill him. There's another point here. At the end of this week's Seder, after the return from the Levaya of Yaakov Avinu, they are passing by the well, by the pit, where they had thrown Yosef. And Yosef goes to the pit, Chazal say, and he makes a broche, Baruch she'oso li neis ba'mokoim hazeh. There is an halacha in Shulchan Aruch. If someone had a miraculous escape from death, he has to, when he returns to that place, he has to make a broche, Baruch she'oso li neis ba'mokoim hazeh. And that's what Yosef did. When the brothers saw that Yosef went to the pit in order to make the broche, he said, oh, Yosef did not forget what we have done to him. Maybe he's going to take revenge. Once his father is dead, he is not afraid to take revenge. Maybe as long as his father, our father, Yaakov Avinu, was alive, maybe that restrained Yosef not to take revenge on us. But now we see that he keeps a grudge. He might probably keep a grudge against us for what we have done to him. Then they came back to Egypt, and the Pasuk says, Vayiru Ache Yosef ki meis avihem. The brothers of Yosef saw that their father was dead. What does it mean? They already returned from the Levaya a long time ago. It's after many months already that Yaakov was died. And here it says, the brothers of Yosef saw that the father was dead. So the Meforshim, Rashi brings the Midrash, they saw a change in the behavior of Yosef, and they noticed from his change of behavior that their father was dead. Their father was dead means they recognize a change. Because of the death of their father, Yaakov, they recognize a change in the behavior of Yosef. What was the change of the behavior? When Yaakov was alive, every meal they had together in family. Yaakov was sitting at the top of the table, Yaakov Avinu. Yosef was sitting next on his right, and then Reuven, each one according to his age. That was when Yaakov was alive. After Yaakov was dead, he did not invite them at all to his table. Finished. No more meals together. So they said, oh, that means, again, another proof that Yosef is keeping a grudge. He's keeping a grudge against us. So what did they do? They concocted a lie. They invented a lie. Because of the sake of Sholem, you're allowed to tell a lie. And they sent to Yosef a shliach, a messenger, telling Yosef, you know your father, before he died, our father Yaakov made a will. And in his will, he said to you, Yosef, please forgive the sins of your brothers. And it wasn't true. Yaakov never had any suspicion that Yosef would have a grudge against his brothers. He didn't need to tell him that, to make a testament, to make a tzavoah, to make a will, to command Yosef after his death, please do not take revenge on your brothers. So Yosef cried, Torah says, because of that. And he told them, do not fear, because am I instead of Hashem? And you thought to do me evil, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu thought it for the good, in order to make you survive in this period of famine. And now do not fear, I'm going to go on sustaining you and your children. And he consoled them, and he spoke on their heart. So in those words of Yosef, when he says, am I instead of Hashem Yisborach? Do not fear me. Rashi explains, if I would have wanted to take revenge against you, could I do it? But even you wanted to do evil to me, and you could not. HaKadosh Baruch Hu turned it for the good for me. How can I all alone, take revenge against you and do you evil? That's what Rashi says. Look at the way how Yosef's brain works. He's in a situation of power. He's the king in Egypt. He could now make all the counts with his brothers. Now the time has come to settle the accounts with his brothers. And the brothers think that who would not think like that? To be frightened of their victim, of Yosef, that he would take revenge. And they concoct and they invent a tzavoah, a testament, a will which never existed. And what does Yosef say? He says, am I instead of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so that you should fear me? What can I do to you? You yourself wanted to do me evil. You wanted to destroy me, yes? And you could not 10 against 1. And I'm a 1 against 10. Kal v'chomer, all the more that I cannot do you any harm. What's the pshat? What do you mean? How can you compare 10 against 1, 1 against 10? But he's a king. He just needs an order to the guards. Put them in prison or this or that. Finished. They are going to be executed. No. Yosef understands. Lo yatem, you have done nothing. One cannot do anything to another person unless HaKadosh Baruch Hu agrees with it. You tried to destroy me, and not only it, because of the chaloimes, you could not bear that I would one day be king over you, and because of that, you tried to destroy me, and look what happened to you. You played into my hands. Instead of destroying me, you put me to become a king. Because of that, thanks to you, I became a king. How could I try even to think that I could settle my accounts with you? How could I? Atachas Eloikim. What can I do against you? I can't do anything. ואתם חשבתם אולי, אלוהים חשוב לטובו. Look what the Rashbam says on these words. You thought against me bad. HaKadosh Baruch Hu thought it for the good. The Rashbam says something wonderful. The Rashbam says like this. He says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu goram lochem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu caused you to behave in such a way to sell me as a slave. You have done nothing wrong. V'atem lo peshatem. You have done nothing wrong. You have done no avere, no pshiyah. Ki lo toivaschem niska ben HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu had in thought for your own good. Now look what Rashbam says. Rashbam says, Yosef told his brothers, do not be upset, do not fear me, because it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu who caused you to behave in such a way, to hate me, to be jealous of me, to sell me as a slave, so that you should survive the famine. And you have done nothing wrong. Atem lo pshatem. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu who pushed you along. Very schwer Rashbam, very hard to understand this Rashbam. Akol bidei shomayim chutz mi'ira shomayim. We know that everything is in the hands of HaKadosh Baruch Hu except the fear of Hashem. How could you say that they have done nothing wrong, the brothers of Yosef? Atem lo pshatem. You have done no pshiyah, no pesha, no avere. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu goram lochem, he says. HaKadosh Baruch Hu caused you to behave in such a way. How can the Rashbam say such a thing? How can he put such words in the mouth of Yosef? That's what Yosef is saying to his brothers. You have done nothing wrong, but he rebuked them. He gave them a tochocho as soon as he revealed himself to his brothers. Very schwer Rashbam. When you read the Rashbam alone, you don't understand a bit of it. Where is the bechira? Where is the free choice? Hakol bidei shomayim chutz mi'ira shomayim. Everything is in the hands of Hashem except the fear of Hashem. Remember when we explained already once that everything is in the hands of Hashem except the fear of Hashem. That means up to a certain point. Yes, I can decide whether to fear Hashem or not to fear Him. That's in my own hands. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not going to influence me one way or another. But even when I choose to fear HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or chas v'sholem, to go against HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to transgress chas v'sholem his mitzvahs, even then I'm limited in my bechira. That's in my hands to the point of the realization of my project. I always give the example of a killer, a rotzeach, who decides to kill someone. So of course, the choice he has made, the project, the idea, and the planning of the killing he's going to make, that he is doing, of course. That's not HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't put into his mind, go and kill somebody. Because free choice is in the hand of a person. But once he decides to go and kill that person, he cannot kill that person unless it has been decided from above that person is Chayir Miseh. So says the Ramban, so says the Chodesh Alvoves, and that is something you cannot debate. Everybody must agree on that point. That even when you say that a person is free to decide what to do, yes, he is free in his decision what to do. But whether he's going to be successful to realize it and to achieve it, to be successful in his enterprise, whether it is a good, whether it is bad, that is not in his hands. That is in the hands of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore we could say like this, that there is no stira now, there is no contradiction. When Yosef rebukes his brothers, of course he rebukes them because they took the decision. They plotted out, we know that. They did it with a cool head. They were sure they were doing the right thing, but they misjudged. There was an avla here. They didn't have rachmanis. Okay, you think Yosef is a hoidef. Yosef is someone who wants you to kill you off. That's what they thought. But there is rachmanis. One has to have pity. There is other ways. So the decision they took, that was their own. So Yosef tells them, Atem mechartem oisyeino. You have sold me. You have done something wrong. But if HaKadosh Baruch Hu let you realize your project, first of all, he didn't let you because you wanted to kill me. And really, you switched your decision into selling me as a slave. So already HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes in to change your project. And even that project, which you were successful to do, that means to sell me as a slave, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu lets you do it, that is because Elokim chashova l'toivo, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu knew that he had to realize a few things with that. First of all, to fulfill the chaloimos, to bring in the Golus Mitzrayim, and to save you from famine. A few things had to be done by letting you realize your project to sell me as a slave. But here, the Rashbam says something else. He says, Lo peshatem, you have done nothing wrong. He seems to say that there is not even an aveire. Now that's impossible to say. We know that the Aseres HaShvotim, the 10 brothers of Yosef, made an aveire. We know that. We know. Although they were not punished themselves, but they were punished their Gilgul. That means their neshama, which came back in the Asor Aruge Malchus. They were the neshamas of the 10 brothers of Yosef. We say in the Kines of Tisha B'Av, of Yom Kippur, that before killing the Asor Aruge Malchus, the general, the Roman general who ordered the execution, filled all his palace with shoes. And he called the Asor Tanoim, the 10 Tanoim. He told them, you know, I've read in your Torah what is the punishment for someone who sells a person. So he said, death. Goinev ish me'echov mos yomus. A person who steals a person, one of the Yidden, and sells him as a slave, chayiv miseh. And he tells them, therefore, if your fathers, the 10 Shvatim, were here, I would have judged them in front of you. But since they are not here, I'm going to judge you instead of them. And because they had sold Yosef in order to buy shoes, so that's why he filled all his palace with shoes in order to show them. Yeah, I know the story, you know. I know very well the story of selling Yosef. So we see that there was an avle. There was a punishment of Kolsov in the end. So how can the Rashbam say, no, you have done nothing wrong? So, Baruch Hashem, there's this sforno. Without the sforno, I don't know what one could have said. But there's a sforno here. The sforno says exactly the same as the Rashbam, but he explains it better. He says, Ine, behold, Pehulaschem oiso bishgogo. What you have done wrong with me, that was beshoigeg. It was not bemezid. Why? Shechashavtem oisi leroidef. Because you thought I was guilty of death. You judged me as a roidef. A roidef is someone who runs after a victim to kill. So you're allowed to kill the roidef, the pursuer, in order to save the victim. You thought, I wanted to take you off from Klal Yisrael. The brothers of Yosef thought that Yosef reported Lashon Hore to his father against them, so that the father should estrange them, take them away from Klal Yisrael, like Esav and Yaakov, or Yishmael and Yitzchak. That was the thought of the brothers of Yosef. Therefore, Yosef tells them, what you have done, it was counted as a shoygeg without knowledge, because you made a mistake. If it would have been the truth that I was a roidef, or your pu'ulaschem badin, your action would have been something completely legal. So according to you, you were behaving in a legal way. You had done nothing wrong. You made a mistake. So what? Everybody can make a mistake, can make a misjudgment. So it's a shoygeg. So therefore we can say like this. When the Rashbam says, Lo peshatem, you have not done a pshia, it means exactly what pshia means. Pshia means an aveire b'mezid. Lo peshatem bi. You have not done an aveire b'mezid against me, but b'shoygeg, there was an aveire. And we know the Torah says, even on a shoygeg one needs a kapor, one needs forgiving, expiation. And now, listen what the Sforno goes on to say. Elokim chashovo letoivo. HaKadosh Baruch Hu thought it for the best. Im tzibochem zois ha'machshov ashgogo, it caused to you to have that mistake, to make that mistake, so that letachlis toiv, for a good purpose. Hear what he says. He says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the Achei Yosef make a mistake, misjudge, a shgoge, to think that he's a roidef, so that l'tachlis toiv, so that the purpose of the chaloimes should come to realization, so that they should be saved of famine, and etc., etc. So here we've got something even more than what we used to say all the time, that in order not to keep a grudge, in order to take away sinas chinam, we always speak in the time of the Churban, but we are in the time of the Churban. We just fasted Asor B'Teves. People seem to forget. They think that the time of the Churban Abayis is only in the dry Wochen. We're not allowed to eat meat and drink wine, or to have a bath and so on. But one forgets that Asor B'Teves, this Asor B'Teves for which we have fasted Erev Shabbos, there is an Abu Drohom, which is brought in the Beis Yosef, which says that this Asor B'Teves, if it would fall on a Shabbos, would not be nitche. Why? Because it's written in Yecheskel, K'soiv lecho es etzem hayoyim hazeh. And Yom Kippur, it also says etzem hayoyim hazeh, be'etzem hayoyim hazeh. And we learn from that, etzem hayoyim hazeh in Yom Kippur, that even if Yom Kippur falls on a Shabbos, we must fast, like this Yom Kippur, it fell on a Shabbos, we must fast on Shabbos. Be'etzem hayoyim hazeh. And this wording of be'etzem hayoyim hazeh is said also about Asor B'Teves in Yecheskel. So says the Abu Drom, it's brought in the Beis Yosef. In Turkey, it was very strange when everybody was asking, when did we last fast on Erev Shabbos? Friday. When people came out of shul, you told them good Shabbos. They could not even answer back good Shabbos. They were so famished and tired and mamish. It's something gewaltig. It's a terrible roishem I had from, especially because it fell on Erev Shabbos. It shows it's not nitche. So why? I heard once, okay, be'etzem hayom hazeh, but why? Why etzem hayom hazeh? Why is it like Yom Kippur, Asor B'Teves? After all, Asor B'Teves is only to commemorate the siege of Yerushalayim, when Nebuchadnezzar surrounded Yerushalayim with his troops. And then there was the breaking of the walls. And then there was the Churban of the Beis HaMikdash. So it's only the beginning. It was only the beginning of the destruction. So why is it so harsh? So I heard from someone. He said that because the Gemara says in Maseches Tainis דף חופטס, עמוד א', I just looked in it. So don't think I know that. דף חופטס עמוד א', the Gemara says in Maseches Tainis that really, why do we keep Tisha B'Av as a Tainis? We should have kept Asor B'Av, because the main burning of the Beis Hamikdash was on Asor B'Av. Rov HaEchol, the main portion of the Beis Hamikdash was burnt on Asor B'Teves. And the Gemara says in Maseches Tainis there, Choftes Amud Aleph, why do we keep Tisha Asor B'Av? Why do we keep Tisha B'Av? Because the starting of the burning was on Tisha B'Av. And Aschalta de Puranus Odife. The beginning of a Puranus is much, much worse than the end. That's what the Gemara says. Now that needs explaining. Why is the beginning of a Puranus is worse than the end? Maybe the explanation is like this. You know, when Hitler came to power, in 1933, everybody said, mad, a mad person. Let him, he's just talking through his hat. No one paid attention what he was saying. The Jews are guilty to start the war. A Meshiganer. In the beginning of a Puranus, no one pays attention. Hashem should protect us. The beginning of a Puranus, everybody goes on sleeping. The Yidden in Hungary, they thought until 1944 they were going on as if it was a peacetime. They could have run away at that time, but they did not. Never. We are Am Kshe Oiref. We are a nation of people who are hard-necked, and we do not want to awake to do tshuva. We always seem to lull ourselves in illusions that everything is going to go on well and good forever and ever. But never, when the end came, everybody did tshuva. There was not one of the Kedoshim. They're all Kedoshim. They're all Kedoshim. Not whatever he had done in his previous life, in his life. Whether it was not a Shemer Shabbos or whatever, he was not keeping a thing from the Torah. They were all Kedoshim because at the time of the execution, they all did tshuva. But this is Am Kshe Oiref. That is Aschalta de Puranus Odif. The beginning of a Puranus is the schwerst, is the schwerste. It's the worst of the worst. Why? Because the beginning of the Puranus, no one pays attention. And in every generation we are being taken with that virus of sleeping. Aschalta de Puranus. Now again in our generation, a new door. A new door. We are all a new generation. Not all. Some of us have lived through the Second World War, Baruch Hashem. But mostly a new generation, and we behave the same way as the Alte Doich. No one wants to pay attention. We hear there and here some anti-Semitism coming up in the world. And no one moves. No one moves. That is the pshat. Aschalta de Puranus be'etzem hayoyim hazeh. That even if it would fall on a Shabbos, we would have to make a tainis. That is why Aschalta de Puranus, the beginning of a Puranus, is so schwer, it's so important, like Yom Kippur, because there is something. Rabbeinu Shalom wants to send us a message. Dai lechakime bermize, someone with a chacham, it's enough to give him a hint. You know, I always quote the moshel of a pupil in the class. If he's a clever pupil, I'll just tell him, I don't even have to say a word. Just I look at him with my eyebrows, I don't say anything. He's a clever pupil, he knows what the message is. But a stupid pupil, you give him remozim, you give him hints, gornisht, nothing happens. Why should we be stupid pupils? Plenty of remozim, plenty of hints HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us. in our time now, that we should move. Why should the Seirus of Tshuva come from Goyim? We are supposed to give the message to the world. Why should some Goy in America tell us Musar, how to behave with our neighbors? We should give the message to the world. It's a patch on the face. Am Sgula, the chosen nation. We are supposed to be the Mamleches Kohanim v'Goy Kodesh, and where is our head? In money, 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 money the whole time. And that's what it was in Poland. My brother-in-law tells me in Poland, in Warsaw, the Polacks, the young Polacks used to tell him, he was a young boy, you, the Jews, you think everything belongs to you. Yes, they had properties, they had blocks of flats all belonging to them. He said, yes, the blocks belongs to you, but the streets belongs to us. And you can repeat it in Polish. I can't repeat Polish. And they were so well established there for hundreds and hundreds of years. And from one day to the next, it all turned upside down. From one day to the next. Why can't we understand? They are a Muslim. And all that because of what? Because of Sinas Chino. Sitnoi shel Esav is Yosef. Here we see from the behavior of Yosef. Here we see how we should behave. Why just Yosef is going to bring down the Mapole of Esav? What is Yosef so special? More than all the other Shvatim. What has got Yosef? Well, Yosef is the son of Rachel. That is what's so special. He takes it after his mother. And Rachel was special in her behavior with her sister. She preferred to lose all her life, and more than her life, not to shame her sister. She is going to bring the Gule. Kol beronon ishmo. Rachel mevako al boneo. Why just Rachel? Why just Rachel is going to bring the Gule? Say Chazal in Psichte Deicho Rabosi. Chazal say because of the story of the Simonim which she gave to her sister, so that her sister should not be ashamed. Self-sacrifice for the welfare of the other. That is Moshiach. In Midrash Yeshaya it says, God says to Moshiach, Moshiach Tzidki, my dear son, are you ready to suffer for Klal Yisrael, so that I should bring the Gule in your Srus? He says, yes. Yes, I'm ready, but on one condition, that I'm going to deliver all of them without any, even the Rishoyim who are in Gehenna. If I'm going to be able to be Mechayim Meisim, even to the Nephilim, to those babies who have not seen the light of the world, if I can make Triyas HaMeisim to all those, and take all the Rishon from the Gehenna, not one soul should be left away, then I'm ready to suffer. And Taki, when we know the famous story in the Gemara, when one of the Amoroim saw Yohanovi at the gate of Rome, and he saw him putting the bandages on his wounds, and it's a picture to say that the Moshiach is having wounds and pains for Klal Yisrael. He asked him, when do you come? When are you going to come? Mosaiko Osimor. When are you coming? And he answered, today. And he waited the whole day, this Amoira, I don't remember the name, and the Mashiach did not come. So he came back to him and said, you told me yesterday you were going to come yesterday. To me, today, and you did not come. He said, you didn't understand what I said, he said. Hayoim, I said to you. Hayoim im bekoilos ishmo. Today, if you listen to his voice, to the voice of HaKadosh Baruch, let us not think there is another way for Geula. There is no other way. We have got to set the example. Who else will? As I said before, have the Goyim have to teach us Musar? The Goyim will have to come. Moshiach can come from the Goyim. That's the explanation why Sitnoi Shel Esav is Yosef. He's going to bring down the Mapole of Yosef. So let us take Yosef from this passage, which we just read before, the behavior of Yosef with his brothers, the way he handled it, and the way he understood it. Not only that the action itself was decided by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the selling him as a slave was decided from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But even in their minds, to go to their minds and say, it's not their fault, Nebuch. They made a mistake. And not only that, and to say that that mistake was caused by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And yet, they need an expiation, because sof kol sof, there was an amount of bechira. They became the tools for that to become the shluchim. Shelachtem. That's why Yosef, first he says, mechartem, and then he says, shelachtem. Lo atem shelachtem. As shluchim, like a shliach. Shlucha shel Adam kemoisoi. As shluchim, it's not you. You are the shluchim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but you chose to be the shluchim. As we know from the Medrash, the famous Moshel, the Umas Ha'olam are going to say, Mitzrayim, for example, they say, you said to Avraham Avinu that you commanded that his descendants should become slaves in Egypt. So what have we done wrong to the Yidden? Why should we be punished? So the Medrash says, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu answered to the Mitzrayim, okay, of course I've decided that the Yidden have to go into Golus. But I never said where and by whom should they suffer. You volunteered to become the torturers of my people. And the Midrash says a mashal to a king. A king had a son who misbehaved. So he said to his to the people around him, the courtisans, the nobles, the people who are around in the palace. Courtiers. Yeah, that's right. So he said to one of the courtiers, that who amongst you is ready to give a pet to my son? My son has misbehaved, so I cannot. I don't have the heart to punish him myself. Who amongst you volunteers to give a pet to my son? So there was one amongst the nobles, amongst the courtiers, who hated the king very much and his son. So he said with a big smile, said, I would volunteer. So he said, all right, go ahead. So he came, he gave him such a patch. The poor child fainted. They had to call the doctor. So that the king became very angry. He said, now, take him to execution. So he said, Sir, Your Majesty, what have I done wrong? You said, who volunteers to give a patch to my son? He misbehaved. So he said, right, but I didn't ask you to do it. And I know that you took the opportunity to give him such a strong patch and nearly took his life out of him. So we see, even if someone chooses to become the tool of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, well, we can't compare the two, of course. Achi Yosef, there was a shigorge, there was something of a kina, something of a sinner which mixed in, and that caused them to be shoigig. They need a kapora for that. But to a certain extent, it was not, although it was premeditated, it was all concocted out, all plotted, but they made a mistake. And that making of the mistake also, it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will, but to a certain extent they were guilty of being chosen as the tools. They have chosen to be the tools for that mistake. So we see that the way to live in peace and love with everybody are those two things. First of all, to know Hakol bidei shomayim chutz miyiras shomayim, and even in yiras shomayim, not only there is a certain limit to up to a certain point a person can choose to do what he wants, but even in choosing sometimes, even in his mind, HaKadosh Baruch Hu can interfere to a certain extent. And now we understand David HaMelech when he said to Shloimo, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has sent him to curse me. That means HaKadosh Baruch Hu has interfered even in his decision, not only in his action, even in his decision. So why should he punish Shimi ben Gero? Because Shimi ben Gero had also come to settle with David, because he came from the house of Shaul. So he also had something to do against David. And that also he had chosen to become the tool of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to a certain extent. And because of that, he has to be punished. He's a moired ba'malchus chayiv miseh. Why didn't David HaMelech kill him on the spot? Because he felt probably that he didn't want to let his anger surface at the time. So before his deathbed, then he could do it, mamish l'shem shomayim, for the purpose of ha'inish of moired ba'malchus chayiv miseh. So that is the pshat. Yosef, the example of Yosef, sitnoi shel voyo beis Yosef lehovo, beis Yosef lekash. That is all take an example, and that is the purpose of the Parshias which we are reading now, in order to wake us to the tshuva, so that we should bring the Gula Shleima.